is the 8th Mishnah. It's on Lamed Beis, Amud Beis of Perek Hameiniach, which is Gemara Hameiniach, and we'll start from the Mishnah. Masnisin, our Mishnah says, המבקע, someone chops. It's like chopping wood. And let's learn this according to the Bach. If you notice, there's a little aleph there. That aleph takes us to the side. It's a footnote. And over here, it switches the order of the way things go. So all it's going to do is it's going to change this abbreviation. Let's spell out Bershus. Let's spell it out. Bershus Harabim. And then there's Bershus Hayachid. The difference is Rabim means it's a public property and Bershus Hayachid means a private property. So you just switch these in the first two cases, and it goes like this according to the Bach. It says Hamavakea b'shus hayachid v'hizik b'shus harabim. Someone chops wood in a private property. Here I made like a kind of a street, but he's chopping wood in the first case in a private property, and v'hizik b'shus harabim, but it caused damage. It's the opposite of this. It caused damage in a public property. So the wood actually flew into the street, hit someone in the street, and caused damage there. Or the opposite, b'shus harabim. This is case number 2. He's chopping wood exactly. In this case, he's in a public property. V'hizik b'shus hayachid, and it flew over someone's fence or flew into a private property and caused damage. The third case is, let's put in the number 3 over here, because you have to go back inside. B'shus hayachid, v'hizik b'shus hayachid. Let's say he's chopping wood in a private property and it caused damage in another private property. You have to put the comma there. V'hizik b'shus hayachid acher, caused damage in another private property. Acher means another. Chayiv. Then you're going to be chayiv. The Gemara is just going to go through why we need 3 cases. If you're chayiv and you chop wood and it hits someone, why do you have to tell it to me 3 times? Let's do case number 1. Let's see. Maybe we can make some clear room here, and then we'll fill this in. Let's see if we can. If you don't mind, I'm just going to erase this temporarily, just so. Okay. Sorry. We will get back to this later. Beauty of computers. So let's do now case number 1 is in private, public. Number 2 is chopping in public, which is a rishus harabim, and hit in private property. And number 3 is another. So you have those 3 cases. Now, utzricha, we need all 3. Utzricha means it's necessary, or we need. The itana, because if it would have said, hamevakeh b'shus hayachid v'hizik b'shus harabim, if it would have said case number 1, now you understand why the Bach switched it, because it's easier to do that. Or, actually, I don't know why he switched it. Maybe that was his text. He had a different text. If it would have only said the first case, so I would have understood that the first case is chayiv because you're chopping in a private property, you're hitting in a public property. That's the big deal. I would have understood that you're chayiv mishum de shchichi rabim. Shchichi means frequent or common. It's common for there to be, rabim means many people. And so therefore, of course, you're going to be chayiv. Your wood went flying into the street, so of course you're going to be chayiv. Aval mirshus harabim, but if you're chopping wood like this guy is in a public property, you see the street lines over there. It's in the street. It's in the middle of the street. If he's chopping wood in the middle of the street and it hits into a private property, right over here, right? But if he's chopping wood in a public property and it goes into a private property, where you don't have, it's not frequent for there to be many people, I would say, ema means I would say. Ema could also mean say, but as an imperative, but I would say No. I would say no, which means pater. Let's add in the word pater. Okay. So therefore it has to tell me the second case. Let's say it would have said from a public property and it's going into a private property. It's this guy and it's going into a private property. So then if it would have only said that case, Mishum b'shus. Why is he chayiv in the second case? It doesn't say the first case. It only says the second case. Why is he chayiv? Because he has no permission to be standing in the street chopping wood. I'm sorry, that does not belong there. That comma. Shlei b'shus ovid. Ovid means acting or doing. He's without permission. He's doing. Ikara means originally, right? He's originally or initially. What he's doing, where in other words, where his base is without permission. But if he's in his own property and it's flying into a public property, the bishus of it over there, he has permission to do that. Of it means to do. Emaloi, I would say no, which means I would say pater. So in other words, if it would have said only case number one, I would have said only case number one is chayiv because you're hitting people in a public property. You can't just throw things into public property. However, in this case, you're throwing something over your fence to your neighbor's property, pater. So therefore, it has to tell me the second case that no, you're chayiv. But if it would have only said the second case, then I would have said only in the second case you're chayiv because you have no permission to chop wood there. However, in the case number one, you should be pater because you're allowed to chop wood in your own property. And we'll ignore the fact that it's going into the public. I would say that you're pater. Okay, v'i tana hanach tarti. Hanach means these. And if we learned hanach tarti, these two, which means case number one, case number two, this one I would say is chayev mishum deshchichi rabim because there's many people there. That's why number one is chayev. V'ha, in this one, right, is this mishum deshalei b'shus because you don't have permission. That means that's why he's chayiv because he's in a public property. Aval mirshus hayachid l'shus hayachid acher. But from one private property to another private property, where you don't have it's not frequent for there to be many people there. And you also have permission to chop wood there. So I would have thought that you would be pater. So tzricha, we need all cases of the Mishnah. Okay, it's just explaining why. If it would have only said one case, I wouldn't have known the other. Now, of course, there's an obvious question which Sender seemed to ask in the class that. So why don't you just say the last case? Just say this case right here, one private property to another, and if over there you're chayiv, then for sure in those cases you're chayiv. Well, it's a difficult question, and the Mefarshim, the Mukhi Yosef asks it. Let's leave it for, maybe we'll discuss that in class.